The year is 2020. The place is Manchester. The Congress is virtual. The topic is resuscitation. Welcome.
Benvingut.
Witaj. Velkommen.
Welkom. Tervetuloa.
Bienvenue.
Willkommen.
Kalsorisma. Üdvözlet. Velkommen.
Benvenuto.
Witaj.
Bem-vindo.
Добро пожаловать.
Bienvenido.
Hoş geldin. Velkommen. Kresa.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, my name is Jerry Nolan. I'm Chairman of the European Resuscitation Council. Welcome to Resuscitation 2020, the first ERC virtual conference. As you know, the original plan was to have a face-to-face meeting at the Manchester Central Conference Centre, but oh, how things have changed. COVID-19 has affected all of our lives quite dramatically, not least the Manchester Central Conference Centre, which is now a Nightingale hospital being prepared potentially to take patients from the COVID-19 pandemic. But never fear, we've completely rebuilt the conference in the virtual world. And the programme is just as comprehensive as it would have been, thanks to all the hard work of Jazz Saw, who's been heading up the scientific programme, and he'll take you through that in a moment. What I will say is it will include the draft ERC guidelines that we published online yesterday. You'll be able to see those discussed in detail this afternoon. The conference website and all the content have been put together in an incredibly short time. And I'd really like to thank the conference committee led by Uwe Kreimeyer and Patrick van der Voorde, who's worked with Uniweb, our IT people, to put together this website. I'd also particularly like to thank all the office staff who have been working extremely hard over recent weeks to get this together on time. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jazz Saw, and then I'll come back to you to introduce the Sapphire Lecturer. Over to you, Jazz.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome to Resuscitation 2020, the European Resuscitation Council Virtual Congress. I'm going to give you a quick, brief fly through the programme and the website. So all of you who are watching live should be able to see the desktop and have already entered the conference on the virtual website. So hopefully you can see Manchester is the star of the show here. So we've kept our link with Manchester, the original venue. And again, like Jerry, I'm sorry we couldn't meet face to face. You click onto Manchester and you're already in all the key places. So, yeah, so we've got the New Century House, the Print Works, the Exhibition Centre, the Town Hall, the library, where there's lots of information, the Opera House, the university buildings and the Palace Theatre. The great thing about being virtual is that you can get from one to the other very quickly. If you scroll down, you can see what's happening at the moment, and we're in the opening ceremony and you can show more. I'm not going to click on the opening ceremony, but I will show you the guidelines section, which is going to start on the hour. And if you scroll down, you can see the speakers, and you can also see the pre-recorded lectures. So this
Hello
is...
to everybody. It is a real pleasure to introduce you in the new world of system saving life. I'm Federico Semeraro. I am a consultant in anesthesia and intensive care from Bologna, Italy. So
we'll be presenting the ERC guideline drafts in the guideline sessions. There's pre-recorded lectures, and you can also look at the draft materials in these asset sessions. And if you look to the side of the session, you can also type in questions. So you can decide to ask a question and then send that, and the speakers can see that. Just going back to my home page, no conference would be a conference without an exhibition centre, and we have our business partners and sponsors who've created websites. So if you click on these links, you can join. And the important thing is you can arrange to meet a representative, and you can arrange sessions and watch live stream sessions from each of our partners. So there's 3 days worth of sessions on there. An important thing you need to do is set your time zone. So we have attendees from all over the world, and you need to know what time these sessions are happening in your country. So you can watch quite a lot of live content at the time, but there's also quite a lot of content on the website that you can choose to watch whenever you wish. And so quite a lot of pre-recorded materials that you can watch before and after the live sessions. So, and finally, this is a hashtag Resus2020. Use that in your tweets and on Facebook. And I'm going to stop there because now I've sort of given you a quick guided tour. I'm sure you'll want to carry on looking at the website on your own. I'm going to hand back over to the conference chair, Jerry Nolan, the ERC chair, Jerry Nolan, who will now introduce the next part of the opening ceremony. Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks very much indeed, Jazz. That was an excellent overview of the site, and I encourage you just to explore it and play with it. There's an awful lot of content in there. It's a huge pleasure now to introduce our really first speaker of the conference, and this is the first of 2 eponymous lecturers. This is going to be the Sapphire lecture, and I'm going to introduce Gavin Perkins, Professor Gavin Perkins, who is a great friend and colleague for many, many years now. He will be very well known, I'm sure, to many of you listening in on this conference. He's Professor of Critical Care Medicine at the University of Warwick Medical School. He also heads up the clinical trials unit there that is undertaking some incredible research, including, of course, the Paramedic 2 trial. He has a number of other office holding positions at the moment, not least co-chair of ILCOR. And Gavin, it's an enormous pleasure to introduce you for this Peter Sapphire lecture. Over to you, Gavin.
Thank you very much, Jerry, for that very kind introduction. To save the hearts and brains of those too young to die. It's my pleasure to be here with you today to present the lecture named after the great Peter Safar, who coined the phrase to save the hearts and brains of those too young to die. Peter was born in Vienna in 1924 and is widely regarded by the international scientific community as the father of modern day cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It was Peter that developed the concept of the ABC of resuscitation. Peter dedicated his life to researching the science and research of cardiocerebral resuscitation. Peter's long and distinguished life was not one without tragedy. Peter lost his daughter from cardiac arrest following an asthma attack at the age of 11 while he was overseas at a resuscitation conference. And that spurred his dedication to resuscitation and also recognizing the importance that it truly takes a system to save the lives of somebody that sustains an out of hospital cardiac arrest. And he dedicated great amounts of time to helping train the community about how to save lives. He set up ambulance services and he played a key role with Tor Laerdal and the birth of the resuscitation Annie. It's with much regret that I never had the opportunity to meet Peter in person, but it has been absolutely tremendous to have the opportunity to review his work and to be inspired by his work through the years. I'd like to use the Safar lecture to tell you my story in relation to resuscitation. My first interest in resuscitation came at the age of 10 or 12, when as a member of the local Royal Life Saving Society, I took part in the elementary Lifesaver Award and undertook basic resuscitation. So I guess in some ways, an early adopter of the concept of kids save lives. Basic resuscitation, of course, back then, and of course this was in the context of the Royal Life Saving Society that aims to prevent death from drowning. Initial resuscitation efforts focused on the provision of mouth-to-mouth and mouth-to-nose resuscitation. Moving on from basic resuscitation, my next award was standard resuscitation, still focusing very much on expired air ventilation as a key treatment, and also maintaining an airway and placing a victim in the recovery position. It wasn't until the Advanced Resuscitation Award that the combination of chest compressions and ventilations were taught as part of the curriculum. And I was pleased to become an Advanced Resuscitation Award holder prior to coming away to university. My interest in resuscitation and saving life from drowning continued during my time at university. I was fortunate to take on the role as being chair of the Birmingham University Life Saving Club and to have trained to become a teacher, an examiner, and then a national tutor in that discipline. And it was during my time at Birmingham as a medical student that with my colleagues John Hume and Hannah Shaw, that we reflected on the experience that we had learning to become doctors and training as medical students. And I recall vividly the resuscitation lecture that was delivered to us that involved Professor Bion, who was the head of intensive care medicine, demonstrating the art of cardiopulmonary resuscitation on a mannequin to a lecture theatre of 200 to 250 students. With our experience from the Royal Life Saving Society and the Birmingham University Life Saving Club, we felt that this was really a missed opportunity, and so approached Professor Bion to say that we thought so much more could be done to train medical students in the skills required to save a life. Professor Bion served back to us the challenge. He agreed very much that the way resuscitation was being delivered was suboptimal, but how were we going to solve and fix this for him? And that really became the birth then of the resuscitation for medics and dentists, as it was initially known, and then resuscitation for medical disciplines as it subsequently became known. We developed a system of peer-led tuition, starting initially by working with the Royal Lifesaving Society tutors, but then training medical students to become teachers in resuscitation. And we described in the late 90s our programme of work in the journal Resuscitation. Not satisfied with just describing the work, we went on to test and demonstrate how this new programme of training served relative to training delivered by clinical members of staff. So we undertook a randomised controlled trial where we randomised the first year medical students to either receive training from clinical staff or to receive training from their peer group. At the end of the 8-week training programme, they then underwent an external examination where the examiners were blinded to the allocation of the training groups, and their performance in the practical test was assessed. And as you can see here, the students that were trained by the peer tutors performed better than those that were trained by the clinical staff. And I guess, two other important findings were that the reliability of medical student tutors, peer tutors to turn up and deliver the training session was greater than clinical staff, and that there was no significant difference in the students' assessment of the quality of teaching. Following on this concept of development and evaluation, we went on to assess the ability of students to assess other students in the performance of resuscitation skills. And again, we were able to demonstrate in an observational study that peer assessors were as accurate at the assessment of life-saving skills as those drawn from the medical faculty. It was from this background that I first had the opportunity to be invited to speak at a European Resuscitation Council conference, Resuscitation 2000 in Antwerp, and to meet another giant of resuscitation, Leo Bossart, who kindly introduced me to speaking at an international meeting. And I was delighted to be able to share the story of the programme of work that we developed in Birmingham with the wider community. Following on from that, the horizon or the opportunities for developing the programme seem to be more closely aligned with the vision of the European Resuscitation Council. And we made a decision to transfer the training and assessment programme from the Royal Lifesaving Society to the European Resuscitation Council Basic and Advanced Life Support Training Programme. In order to do this, I had to go on I needed to go on a provider course and then an instructor trainer course, and then participate in a course under supervision. And the somewhat youthful Dr. Handley, Kuhn Monsers and Wiebe were the instructors leading on that training programme. And again, it was through this collaboration and I guess the ongoing and the growing collaboration with the European Resuscitation Council that some of the first studies that I undertook in order to inform not only the most effective way to deliver training, but the most important matters to be included in the training curriculum. So the Birmingham Assessment of Breathing study was an observational study exploring the emerging phenomenon and realisation that cardiac arrest was often not diagnosed because people sustained agonal breathing during the early stages of cardiac arrest. We demonstrated with our medical student volunteers that agonal breathing indeed was a substantial barrier to the recognition of cardiac arrest. We went on from that to then examine whether teaching in a randomised controlled trial, teaching medical students to recognise agonal breathing would assist with their diagnosis of cardiac arrest. And we were able to demonstrate substantial improvement in the recognition of cardiac arrest by including specific training to recognise agonal breathing. And it was in that context that we were able to then work with the European Resuscitation Council and have those recommendations included in future resuscitation guidelines. Always striving to improve, again, work from colleagues in Birmingham, looking at the early role of CPR feedback during training in one of the only trials, even to date, to follow students up to 6 months after training. we were able to demonstrate that informative feedback from mannequins during resuscitation training led to improved performance both immediately after training and also in the weeks, months and up to 6 months after initial training, providing support to the concept that real-time feedback during CPR training would indeed improve subsequent performance. This beautiful picture is drawn from Worcester and marks my journey into advanced life support. It was back in the mid-90s that I became a pre-registration house officer down in Worcester under the guidance and supervision of a very youthful and handsome Dr. Lockie, who was the senior house officer working in intensive care medicine during that attachment. It was Andy that introduced me to Jerry Nolan, who at the time was chair of the Advanced Life Support Committee, and then introduced me to the Advanced Life Support Committee, where we had the opportunity to describe and celebrate the successes of the Advanced Life Support, provide a course in the British Medical Journal at the turn of the millennium. And then we went on to undertake a series of evaluations together, looking at the evidence base to improve the way that we deliver resuscitation training. And that focused on a number of elements, but highlighted here is our observation that there was substantial variation in the assessment of advanced life support skills, and that this could be improved by developing a standardized assessment framework and a scoring system to supplement that. And we were then able to develop a series of cardiac arrest simulation tests, which were then integrated into the advanced life support course based on the evidence base that we've been building. In terms of improving the quality of resuscitation, again, simulation studies were important in guiding us on the optimal way to reduce perishock pauses in relation to resuscitation and to increase the chest compression fraction. We were able to show that the use of the self-adhesive pads was better than paddles and manual defibrillation, and furthermore that interrupting the rhythm assessment or pausing chest compressions to analyse the rhythm and then charging the defibrillator during chest compressions significantly reduced the perishock pause, something again which we were able to introduce into advanced life support training curricula. One of the challenges that we were facing 10 or more years ago was the amount of time that people were having to dedicate to training. And the advanced life support course a decade ago involved about 5 or 6 hours of lectures, as well as a series of workshops running alongside the cardiac arrest simulation teaching and subsequently testing. Andy had the vision that we could move this to an online platform, and it was through this that a series, I had the opportunity to lead the development of a electronic life support course, again along with Jerry Nolan and Jazz Saw. And we developed an online platform that provided audio recorded lectures that covered the content that would be delivered in a face-to-face course. We also include reference material in there that provided the user and participant with information in relation to resuscitation in a number of different disciplines. And we built in a degree of interactivity where the user would be presented with challenges and taken through a series of exploratory steps in order to reach the solution to a particular challenge. We also introduced the opportunity for people to test their performance as they move through the programme. Following the style and the system that we'd adopted, that really there's no innovation without evaluation, that we positioned ourselves to undertake a large several thousand person non-inferiority trial where individuals put themselves forward for an advanced life support course and were randomised either to undertake a conventional 2-day advanced life support course or to do the EALS course, the electronic advanced life support course, where half of the programme is delivered electronically, and then there's a more single-day condensed programme. And we were able to demonstrate in this evaluation that performance indeed was similar between the two groups, but there was a substantial cost saving measured by a reduction or largely drawn from the reduction in the number of staff time that was required to deliver resuscitation training. And it was on this background that the e-learning concept has moved forward in the UK and other places around the world. We've gone on with Chris Thorne to evaluate over a course of 20,000 participants and to show that post-implementation, the quality and performance remains similar between the learning outcomes for those undertaking the 2-day advanced life support course versus those undertaking the shorter electronic advanced life support course. Moving from an education theme into a clinical theme, as my research training and my MD and then subsequent appointment at the University of Warwick as an associate clinical professor provided the opportunity to start looking at the ability to undertake research in a clinical setting. And so with Joyce Young and other colleagues, we started to look at CPR feedback and prompt devices that 10 years ago were just coming into the marketplace. We did this first by undertaking a systematic review, which again demonstrated, similar to our prior study, that these devices are certainly useful during training, and highlighted a potential role, particularly if used as part of a systems approach to improving outcomes. We went on to study in particular the qCPR, or an accelerometer device. We were able to optimize performance for resuscitation in the hospital by demonstrating that the device would underestimate chest compression depth if you had a soft support surface underneath, leading to a deterioration in chest compression performance. But we're able to go on to show that if you switched off the audio prompt to not compress too hard, and if you encourage people to press further, so you set a new target on the accelerometer feedback, that people could indeed consistently improve the quality of CPR. Again, we went on to evaluate this in a multi-center trial where we looked at a combination of real-time audio feedback as well as post-event debriefing. And this study was led by Keith Cooper, again with colleagues from Warwick and Heartlands Hospital in Birmingham. And although we were unable to demonstrate in the context of this study, or this study did not show an improvement in clinical outcomes between the different groups, what we did observe is that over the duration of the study in both the control site and also the 2 intervention sites, that there was an improvement in the return of spontaneous circulation rates and a trend towards overall improvement in outcomes. And I guess, sitting this in the context of the literature, I guess it feeds into where ILCOR have positioned themselves, that there remains a potential role for real-time audio visual feedback, where that's particularly combined as part of an overall system quality improvement initiative. Keeping on the theme but changing the setting, so the theme is the quality of CPR. Mechanical chest compression devices provide a way of delivering consistent high quality CPR, but there are costs associated with them, and at times dependent on the skill and the expertise of the team involved, then there may be unintended consequences from using a mechanical chest compression device, particularly where interruptions in chest compression arise during the time it takes to deploy the mechanical chest compression device. I was thrilled to have the opportunity to lead the paramedic study, which was the pre-hospital randomized evaluation of a mechanical chest compression device in cardiac arrest, and delighted to work with 4 outstanding ambulance services detailed at the bottom there, that along with my co-investigators, who really set a landmark in terms of the ability to undertake high quality research at scale in the out of hospital setting in the UK. And we were pleased to report the findings of the study in the Lancet. And some may view the study, or I guess some may view studies as a negative study or a neutral study, but I see all studies as something that provide people with new information that they didn't have before. And in the context of this study, And as has been shown in the other studies, mechanical chest compression devices used routinely in the context of resuscitation don't lead to an improvement of outcome. And that's had significant resource implications in our National Health Service, where it was estimated it would cost £40 million to place mechanical chest compression devices on all of the ambulances. And it's allowed people to focus in on specific indications where it's either unfeasible or impractical to undertake manual CPR, consistent with the now European and international resuscitation guidelines that mechanical chest compression devices are reserved for the context where it's not possible to undertake manual CPR. Building on the partnerships and collaborations developed in the Paramedic 1 trial allowed us to move to the Paramedic 2 trial. This was again a large multi-centre randomised controlled trial funded by the National Institute for Health Research. London Ambulance Service joined our partnership with North East, Welsh, South Central and West Midlands Ambulance Service to deliver the largest drug trial in cardiac arrest. The results, I think, will be known to everybody in attendance at this virtual seminar. Adrenaline was highly effective at restarting the heart, increasing the chances of hospital admission by 3.5-fold. There was also an improvement in survival to hospital discharge, but we didn't observe a significant difference in survival with a favourable neurological outcome. And I'll come on to talk about the study and I guess the interpretation of the study, because there has been a significant amount of international debate in terms of how to best interpret the findings from this study. And a lot of that, I think, reflects around the difference in values between survival and survival with a favourable neurological outcome. But nevertheless, in subsequent evaluations or subsequent analyses of the Paramedic 2 database, what we have been able to show is that irrespective of the effectiveness of adrenaline, the earlier treatment of cardiac arrest leads to better outcomes. And I think this study, which was published at the beginning of the year in intensive care medicine, really draws attention to that. And whilst adrenaline is not more effective if you administer it earlier, the survival outcomes are greater the earlier that you're able to start treatment. Thinking about the interpretation of the Paramedic 2 trial in the context of an economic evaluation, and I guess economic evaluations add useful insights in balancing changes in quality adjusted life years against cost. And in this study published last month in the journal Critical Care, we were able to demonstrate that the cost per QALY in the context of the trial, the within trial analysis up to 6 months, was close to 1.7 million. And that the chances of that being cost effective at a £30,000 threshold was less than 1%. If you move the horizon of the analysis to a lifetime model, where one projects the future health gains from survivors over the duration of their lifetime, involving complex health economic modelling, the cost per QALY for a lifetime horizon model was £81,000 per QALY. And if you use, as we do in the National Health Service, a threshold between 20 to 30,000 for something to represent value for money, one can see in this context that, again, taking the lifetime horizon, the use of adrenaline falls below the threshold that the National Health Service would normally fund an intervention. However, taking the holistic view, or I guess, the step forward from that, and if one includes both the direct health benefits to the individual that receives the treatment, but also extend that to the broader horizon of society as a whole, and one looks where resuscitation has been in effect, or has been unsuccessful at saving somebody's life, or that they're not surviving to go home from hospital, but it allows them the opportunity to gift their organs to help people in the future, that the cost effectiveness analysis modelling then shows if one includes the benefits of organ donation from people that haven't survived, then the cost per quality adjusted life year falls to £16,000, and the treatment has a 90% chance of being considered to be cost effective. So I think, you know, additional interesting insights that almost certainly will feed into the ongoing debate around the use of adrenaline as a treatment for cardiac arrest. I guess taking all of that in context, this slide is to illustrate the relative benefits, and I think Charles Deakin in resuscitation described the inverted chain of survival, and this was really shown also in the Paramedic 2 trial, that the benefits from early recognition of cardiac arrest, early CPR and early defibrillation substantially exceed the benefits from giving adrenaline late in a cardiac arrest. Moving to the final stream of my talk is to talk about the formula of survival. The formula of survival being the concept that in order to save more lives, that one needs to have science to underpin resuscitation recommendations. One needs to have a workforce and a community that are educated in that science, and that there are effective systems in order to implement the science into clinical practice, and that when those are together in a multiplicative manner, one increases the chances of improving survival from cardiac arrest. And that's one of the key roles that the International Liaison Committee on Resuscitation play, that I'm pleased to currently co-chair along with Bob Newmar, and to also serve as the European Resuscitation Council's Director of Guidelines and ILCOR. The International Liaison Resuscitation Committee on Resuscitation is a collection of regional resuscitation councils from around the world, and our vision is to save more lives globally through resuscitation. That vision is achieved through our mission, which is to promote, disseminate and advocate for international implementation of evidence-informed resuscitation and first aid using transparent evaluation and consensus summary of science data. ILCOR have been undertaking for a number of years consensus on science and treatment recommendations, initially on a 5-year cycle basis, and more recently we've transitioned to continuous evidence evaluation. I was very pleased that for Kuhn Monsers to invite me to participate in this meeting in 2005, along with Jazz Saw, in order to evaluate indeed some of Peter Saffer's work and studies which followed in relation to opening the airway. I also had the opportunity to evaluate the evidence relating to foreign body airway obstruction. And that introduced me to the international community of resuscitation science, that it's been a wonderful opportunity to work alongside assessing and interpreting the science and making those interpretations available to the wider international community. The International Consensus on Science and Treatment Recommendation Conferences, as I've alluded to, occurred on a 5-yearly basis and are now occurring on a continuous basis. And indeed, immediately preceding this European Resuscitation Council conference, the International Liaison Committee on Resuscitation met for a 3-day virtual meeting as our plans to come and join you all in Manchester were impeded and prevented due to the COVID-19 crisis. The final slide of my talk really is to acknowledge the great friendship and partnership that resuscitation community has brought to me, and to thank all of my friends and colleagues that have helped me through the 20+ years that I've had the pleasure to share the interest with many of you here around saving more lives through resuscitation. And to return to the start, none of this would have happened if it wasn't for the vision of Peter Saffer, regarded as the father of CPR, who strived to save the hearts and brains of those too young to die. Thank you for your time and attention.
Gavin, thanks very much indeed. An absolutely fantastic lecture. I'm going to give you a virtual clap. I'm sure everybody watching that will be hugely impressed by the massive range of resuscitation science that you've covered. I figured you've covered every link in the chain of survival. You've also occupied almost every leadership role in resuscitation as well. So enormous achievement. I would imagine there's very few people in the world that can compete at that level. So thank you for that great lecture. It is traditional. We don't take questions after the two eponymous lectures, including the Sapphire lecturer. So I won't be taking questions at the moment, although of course for all the other sessions during this conference, there will be a lot of opportunity for you to put questions via the Slido system. Before we take a break, can I just remind you that you need to come out of this session on the programme and then go back into the next session to be able to connect to it. So it's not a sort of continuous process. But if you take yourselves back to the programme on the website, you'll see where you can just click in and then get involved in the next one. And we are due to start on the hour, so that's in about 20 minutes time. So we look forward to seeing you there. And that session will be the first, I think, of two draft guidelines sessions. So I would have thought that that will be a very popular session indeed. And we look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.